Hello Internet, it's time for another Wednesday's serial. Sorry for the delay, but clearly new digs, moving, so yeah. But let's get to it. This week I want to talk about The Red Wing #2. So if you remember last time that I talked about this, there was this whole idea of time travel, and it was very Hickman-esque, except with more of an artist than Hickman designed to it. And you got this tale of time travel, and there's a lot of theory behind it, and there's these fighter pilots that were kind of the vehicle to explain this whole thing, because of course they basically weaponize time travel. Well, they find weapons to take advantage of time travel, so however you want to read into that. And there's one guy who just gets stuck in the past. Woo, seen that before. But it kind of failed to see where the tale would come together. So we see one young pilot who's struggling to get ahead, and he earns his wings despite it all, whatever. It really isn't made anything in the story, and at the end you see him talk to an older gentleman about the beauty of time, kind of like appreciating the beauty of nature. And it's kind of funny because they're tampering with it, which is an interesting way to look at it. And from that scene, you can take this as a parable of time travel, and makes you kind of re-examine time travel stories, is looking at messing with nature and how that affects everything. So you have to think about your actions and how that would affect the future and how the past has affected the future, which adds a deeper level, a bit more of a metaphor. Interesting, sure, but it's kind of an aside and not so focused on, but there is a part in the book that I guess could tie it together, depending again how the story goes forward. And I have a feeling this is going to be one of those books that everything's going to keep building and building, and it could be interesting, but if that final issue doesn't really tie things together and bring the themes to a head, it's going to fall flat on its face. But I'm interested to see how that goes, and that's part of the interesting thing of buying a short book like this in issues rather than as a collected trade. So one of the most compelling parts of this book is actually essentially just a prose part, where we see Robert Dorn, the pilot who is stranded, in this sort of a scene where he crash landed. It was kind of like a old tribal land, and he starts teaching them the basics of agriculture and whatnot, just to kind of help them get ahead and help them out, and does a bit for them. And it's interesting. You also get an idea of how things develop. Of course, the journal that it's reading from jumps from day 14 to day 407, then to 410, and then 411. So, whereas I do get that, yeah, I mean, stuff happened in a year, it felt like one of the most interesting things about time travel is seeing how these antiquated people would react to someone from the future, and you just miss that whole interaction, which I know has been done before, but to just kind of glaze over that feels like you're missing part of what this book's actually trying to get at. So I feel like there's a missed opportunity there, though that would have taken time in a book that frankly wasted a couple pages, and probably could have spent it on that instead, especially considering that there's some like full page bits like here that should have really been paneled to get a little bit, because there's nothing so impactful about that page that really needed to be a whole page. But yes, the book runs a bit deeper and gets you thinking a bit more than most of the stuff you're probably going to read in your stack, so I definitely recommend picking up on that merit alone. But again, this book is, it's interesting, and I'm curious to see where it's going, but it's such a slow build, and it's not like it needs high action or anything. It's just, it's not really focusing on much interaction of characters, and the characters themselves actually really aren't that developed, whereas if we could get a little more interaction, we'd see more about the characters, which just helps the story become more engrossing. But also you could really play on this theme of like how we perceive values and what that means to kind of this nature parable that he's setting up, like how the values of one time are completely different from those who are more rooted to what's actually needed, and to kind of see how maybe we could learn some things from values of the past or something like that. So already, I mean, I'm seeing that this book maybe could have been a little bit more, but it already is so much, so hey, Nothing's perfect, and it's damn good reading, it's compelling, and I'd certainly love to hear any of your thoughts, and if you guys are picking up on any sort of themes or metaphors that I'm not quite grasping yet, and maybe it'll be more apparent later, or if it's just getting you to think more about thumping in general. But hey, peace, love, and a pint. Comments, questions, death threats below, and I'll catch you later.